Welcome to the first Thankful Thursday in 2025. I'm Bringing Expert Amanda Murphy. Let me go in and share this to Instagram and Facebook if my computer would cooperate. Oh, come on, Instagram. And let me make sure it's going in Facebook. Give me just a minute. Okay, I'm going to share this to my group. Bear with me for 1 minute while I get this shared. Okay. And over on Instagram, we'll see if it actually does anything. Instagram doesn't work like half the time. Okay, so we're just going to keep going here because it doesn't want to recognize it. Okay, I'm going to come back into OBS. Thank you for joining me today, the first time in 2025. Hi, Linda. Nice to hear from you. I thought that today, well, a few different things. You guys, I wanted to have a New Year's sale today, but I'm not ready because I'm still cutting fabric. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of what's going on and what the schedule is going to be for this month. I'm out of town next week. I'm at Authorized Sew and Vac in Fresno, California. In February, I'll be at the Creative Center, and then in March, I will be at Chestnut Ridge in Millersburg, Ohio. All those dates, I'll be at Hoover's in April, Montevilla, and Quality shortly following that. Those are in Portland and Washington. All those dates are on my Facebook page. Hello from Massachusetts and from Michigan. So that's where I'll be next. Anyway, I'll be gone next week, but I've already started cutting fabric. There's a lot of things going on here, even though this time of year I don't travel as much to teach. It slows down a little bit. All of my product for later this year is due. So I have been, you can see the graphics tablet is out, and I hope you can't see my screen. No, you can't see my screen. The graphics tablet is out because I've been getting all the fabric done for subsequently in the year, which reminds me that I need to put something on. Oh gosh, you guys should see what a mess it is here. I need to put this on my, okay, a reminder for myself or I won't remember. Anyway, so I started cutting fabric for Cityscape, but I haven't finished. And so I don't have anything ready to list on my website yet. I also have some other things. Oh, I just dropped my glasses. Um, some other things I've been cutting. So our New Year's sale is still going to be in the new year. It's not going to be until I'm hoping the next Thankful Thursday. I'll post everything. I'll explain everything. For all of you who have written me, I am going to have a limited amount of kits of that quilt behind me, which is mostly made out of panels, but has some other prints, in the day and the night. Now, if your dealer stocks the line, go ahead and get it from your dealer. I will have a limited amount of these kits. I will have a limited amount of those kits. That's the one that had all the quilting on it, and I'll talk about the quilting when I'm ready to post the kit. As I said, I'm hoping it will be 2 weeks from today. Okay, and then I had some other special bundles I was doing for you guys that I'm hoping to have ready, but I'm balancing this with a lot of things I'm doing for the 990 right now. So I'm trying to get those done. I have a lot of things either that are coming out at BU or that uh, there's like two big projects for Bernina I'm working on right now. So I'm kind of balancing like running up and down and up and down and up and down, um, getting all those things done. Um, and I will tell you guys about that as soon as I can. I'm kind of on the fence on whether, I was just looking for the Metro pattern, whether you guys want some Metro kits or not. If you want a Metro kit, maybe say in the comments. I'm kind of on the fence. If I have enough fabric, I'll cut some of these. I just don't know what I have enough of until I actually post. Okay? So, oh God, I can't even say anything this morning. I have a terrible headache. That's probably why. So, I wanted to tell you guys that. Then I wanted to talk about um, you guys know if you buy a Bernina, if you're interested in buying a Bernina for the new year, I can give you that $100 rebate, but you got to contact me before you buy. Okay, you got to contact me before you buy. You can do that using the contact form on my website. Same for Laura Star. $50 coupon for Laura Star, $7.99 and above. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something about Laura Star in a minute. So I'm going to show you the thing about Laura Star. All the cityscape patterns are out on my website. The kits do not come with the patterns because like so many people want either PDFs or printed patterns, or they want to buy in a bundle to get the discount, that I list the kits separately from the patterns. So if you wanted to go ahead and order patterns, there's no shipping charge if you're just ordering patterns, if you're in the US. So if you want to do that, you can go ahead and do that without worrying like, am I going to purchase something that I might purchase in a kit? Okay. Um, I thought I'd talk today about stitch regulation. I get so many questions about stitch regulation, whether you're using a regulator or not. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So this is like your mini lesson in stitch regulation. And someone said, I'm going to learn her, Pamela said, Happy New Year. This year, I'm going to learn my Q16 Plus, and that is music to my ears because it is the best machine on earth, the Q series. So you definitely shouldn't be afraid of it. Um, so I am going to show you some things on the machine, but first I was going to tell you about what we did for Christmas this year. So I have a 25-year-old. Is it 25? It's 2025, so he turns 2025. 24 and 26-year-old kids. And my oldest is a girl. And my daughter is a total neat freak. She is the type of person who literally will be scrubbing the counters as you're having a conversation with her. Like she cleans every surface all the time. Okay. So you guys, I was at one of the big Bernina events, the one at 35th Avenue. And, what I was watching the Laura Star demo, which normally takes place with the serger room, because they're ironing as they're serging, so they're learning about the Laura Star there. So I don't always see the full demo, but this time I was the last presentation, so I saw the full demo. And normally they just demo the irons, but this time they demoed the Izzy Plus, which is the steamer that I have on a cart, and I'm going to pick it up for you. So I'm going to tell you my whole debate about this steamer. Um, so it looks like this, right? And it has that Laura Star seam, but instead of having like an iron on the end, because you would think I have enough Laura Star irons, I didn't have this one. Instead of having an iron on the end, it has a steamer that has all this microfine steam. And I thought there's nothing my daughter would love more than a steamer because it's a cleaning. Like one year I got vacuums and that was a hit. Okay. So I got this steamer, and that when I was seeing this demo, Adam from Laura Star pulled this thing out and he was like, I steam my luggage. And you guys know how many times I travel through airports, and you know how gross airports are. I mean, they're just totally disgusting. Um, I thought, oh my goodness, I could steam my luggage, or I could steam my coats when I get off the plane. Okay. Now this is, it's a more expensive steamer than just those little portable ones, but it like disinfects everything. So you can do beds with it, or you can do your furniture with it, right? Oh, I steam my glasses, so I can't see you. Okay. But anyway, that's how the steamer works. So I thought my daughter would love a steamer. My son, I wasn't so sure, but he lives with three guys in their early 20s. So one would think they'd need a steamer, but they'd be less likely to use a steamer, right? So my big debate was, if I got one of these for my daughter, do I get it for my son? Now, when I got my daughter a vacuum, I got my son a vacuum. Um, but I thought, is he going to like it? It was the hit of Christmas. The funniest thing was my son went back before my daughter, and my daughter's like, I have to catch up on steaming or I won't be able to compete. He steamed every surface of his house with this thing. But then also, like, I haven't steamed, I thought, how useful for quilts, right? When I get when I get back, it's a lot like my portable one, but instead of having an iron, it has this thing, and you actually can touch the. There's two different attachments. You can actually touch the wand on this. Laura Star does not give me money for showing you this. I just thought it was really cool. So I thought, okay, I can steam my jacket, etc. My son steamed every surface of his house, right? Every surface of his house. Then he decided his carpet needed to be done, and he went out and rented one of those industrial steamers you do the carpet on. I am so relieved I got him this gift because I actually thought about not getting it for him because I thought it's a lot of money to spend on someone you don't know is really going to like a steamer. But thank goodness I did because he would have been so jealous of his sister's steamer. Just shows you I have no idea what I'm doing when buying for him because I hit on something. Maybe the only time I hit on something he's very hard to buy for. Um, but who knew a steamer for a 24-year-old boy would be such a hit? So anyway, if you're looking for a cleaning supply, which is not as fun as buying sewing supplies by a long shot, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. Look into that steamer because although it's expensive, it kills everything. Like it kills dust mites. It kills well, I should have my son on as a guest. If I could figure out how to hook it up, I should have a guest host where he shows us how to steam because it would be funny. Okay, back to sewing. Can one of you comment in the comments because I want to make sure my comments are still coming through. If I don't get a comment in like the next 5 minutes, then I need to log on to Restream. Okay, so we're going to talk stitch regulation. As I said, I'll come back on in about 2 weeks and I'll show you like the actual quilting on these quilts. I didn't want to show that until the kits are ready. So I just have a quilt sandwich here. I just got out a random sandwich. I think we did this earlier this past year. Oh, good. You guys are still there because I just got high from Michigan. Yeah, it's 11:47. Okay, so this was something we were playing with, just doing like an overall circle pattern sometime in 2024. I found it in the garage. Okay, good. So, let's see. I thought I have been getting. I've gotten like maybe a dozen emails in the last week about stitch regulation. So I thought we're gonna talk about this here. Okay. So stitch regulation um, is basically there's a type where the machine does it. So you have a stitch regulator on the machine, and then it's also used as a verb for when you are regulating your own stitches. You are moving in a way that causes your stitches to be consistent. Okay. So we're talking about two different things here, and I'm going to try to cover both of them for you. Okay. So the emails I've been getting, and as I said, I've gotten a lot in the past week. So you guys are either like home quilting or whatever. You are noticing that in manual mode, it's going to be even smoother. It's going to feel smoother than in regulated mode. That was a few people wrote me about that. And that's true, and I'll explain why. But the other email that I kept getting is I'm getting skip stitches when I'm using a regulator. Why am I getting these big long stitches? And I'm going to also show you that. Okay, so I will be showing it on the Q16 because that's the machine I have down here. All my domestic machines are upstairs with all the things you can't see. So I'm going to be showing you the Q16, but the same principle applies, and perhaps even more so if you have a domestic machine that has a regulator foot. Now, a lot of the reasons people buy Berninas for quilting is because of the way the regulator works. So the regulator is there's sensors, right? There's one sensor if you have it on a foot. If you have a Q, there's two sensors. And they aim up at the fabric and they take thousands of pictures a second of the fabric to determine where to put the next stitch and when to put the next stitch, right? So a regulator is basically reading that fabric, and depending on the setting on your machine for your stitch length, it's putting the stitch in. So when you're driving with the regulator, okay, that's funny. Brenda just said she bought her son a hand steamer when he was in the military. Who knew, right? Um, who knew this would be such a big hit and inspire steaming carpets? Um, so when you're using a regulator, when your foot goes on the pedal, it's basically an on-off switch, okay? Pushing down harder or pulling up on the pressure on the pedal is going to have no effect. It's just on or off, okay? That's it. Because the regulator is determining the length of the stitch. And therefore, the length of the stitch on the screen, whether you have a regulator foot on or you have a Q series, so the regulator sensors are in the base of the machine, when you have a foot on, the screen setting, of however many stitches per inch or stitch length on a domestic machine, the screen setting is what determines the stitch length, okay? And that's going to tell the machine whether to speed up or slow down. So one of the main advantages of having a regulator is when you speed up your hands, the machine automatically speeds up, right? And when you slow down your hands, the machine automatically slows down. And the reason why everyone wants this for ruler work is it saves a huge amount of time when you're going around a ruler. And when you're just doing a straight ruler, now I didn't bring a ruler over here today because I was going to talk this, but I'm going to show you this in a minute. I want to talk it through first. When you're just using a straight ruler or something, it's way faster to be able to just, speed up, go on your merry way, and not worry about stitch length. And that's what a regulator does for you, right? It allows you to speed up or slow down, and the machine just basically keeps up with you. But when you have that foot down, that's basically on, right? And when you come up, it's off, right? So on, off. And everyone wants this with rulers, which is something you can't do really. There's a few third-party solutions out there, but I wouldn't recommend any of them on a regular domestic machine, okay? Because you have to take your regulator off to put a ruler foot on. So you're regulating. And honestly, you're teaching yourself to do that is going to improve your free motion and your ruler work so much that I think it's worth doing, right? Now, it is true. The new 990 has it's a slightly different regulator than this one. It's not quite as fast as a Q series because there's only one sensor, but it is much faster than the regulator foot that goes on like the 5 series or the 7 series. You're going to drive all of these things the same. And what can throw people is feeling the machine speed up and slow down, right? That's why some people, even though Bernini's are much, much, much smoother than their competition. Like if you went, and I'm not going to say any specific brands, but you sat on another brand that you get for like 2/3 the price and you tried to do ruler work with the regulator, chances are that it's going to be very, very jerky. Well, what happens with Bernini? Yes, it's gonna feel jerkier to you than if you were on a manual mode because you are feeling the machine speed up and slow down. And what you kind of have, but it's much, much smoother than its competitors, right? What you have to get used to when you are using a stitch regulator is kind of just disregarding the speeding up and slowing down that the machine is doing. You kind of just have to trust that machine and go. Because if you keep second guessing it, what you begin doing, and you guys have probably seen me do, I tend to do this when I talk and I quilt, and I don't do it when I just quilt. What you tend to do when you're trying to anticipate that regulator movement of speeding up and slowing down is you come on and off the foot pedal, right? And that's telling the machine, turn the regulator off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. And that will be a very inconsistent stitch. Instead, you want to let that your toe part of the foot pedal go down, and trust that regulator. When you slow down and when you speed up, the foot pedal remains consistent. It's on. Okay. And what people do is they feel it. They start moving their hands slower and they feel it slowing down, and then they come off the regulator. And then they're like, wait, I want to speed up. And then they go on the regulator. The regulator will get confused with something like that because you keep telling it on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, right? Instead, you just trust it and you keep it down. Now, I have a terrible habit when I'm doing on live streams that sometimes when I look up to read the comments, I come off the foot pedal, and you'll hear me say, oh, I got a jump stitch. It's because I do this. I like come up and I shouldn't have. I'm like still quilting. Um, that will result, the jump stitches are happening because you're coming off the regulator, and every time it's kind of like doesn't know what to do. So when you're using a regulator, it's an on-off switch, right? So you just keep it on until you're ready to stop, okay? And you disregard hearing that machine ramp up or go down. You just completely ignore it. Now, here's the thing. The smoother you get with your hands, which is why I do feel it's beneficial for people to learn to regulate even if they normally use a regulator, right? The more smoothly you move your hands in all directions, like resist going faster to the front, faster to the back. The more smoothly you move your hands, the less you'll feel or you'll hear the ramping up and down of the machine speed, right? I'm going to show you this in a minute, so I want to make sure you understand it. If you're moving smoothly, the regulator's going to sound smoother, and you're going to be more, or you'll be less likely to ride up and down on the foot pedal. Okay? So that is the secret to a regulator. Even when you're using a regulator on a machine, it will perform better and your quilting will look better if you're about the same speed in all directions. Now, the regulator is going to catch any discrepancies in that, right? So if you slow down a little and speed up, that's what a regulator's for. It's supposed to regulate your stitches and catch that stuff. But that's very different than you going like this and this and this and this and this with the regulator. You got to ignore that speeding up and slowing down that you're hearing the machine do, okay? And the smoother you go, the less you'll hear that speeding up and slowing down. That's what's hard to get used to because a lot of beginners instead just keep ramping up. Does that make sense to you guys? I hope I'm making sense. This is one of the things I hate about online teaching or live streams is I really can't see you guys. So I don't really know if I'm getting through to what, you're looking to do. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about stitch regulation without a regulator. Okay, I'm going to talk about that and then I'm going to show you both. Okay, so when you don't have a regulator on, so if I turn the Q series on manual, okay, and remind me to talk about BSR1 at the end, but if I turn the Q series on manual, or if I was using a ruler foot without a stitch regulator on a 5 series, a 7 series, it just like no regulation, right? There are 3 things that control my stitch length. It's my hand speed, the speed on the machine, okay, and how hard I push the foot pedal. And ideally, what I want to get used to doing is listening to that machine. I say this to you guys a lot because the machine, to maintain a consistent hand speed, you want to be able to hear that kind of hum of the machine. You find your speed for the day and you keep going at it no matter what direction you're moving in. Now, in this case, when you're not using a regulator, the foot pedal does more. It's not just an on-off stitch. It's bringing the speed up, making more stitches when you push it more, or making less stitches when you come off it, right? It would be very confusing. And what I see people do is they try to be human stitch regulators. They try to watch every stitch form, and you can't do that. Our brains don't work like that. So instead, what you want to do is start at your speed for the day, right? And you kind of find if your stitches are too long, you have two options. And you actually have three options. If your stitches were too long, you could slow down your hands. I very seldom use that method because I find my hands want to go a particular speed. It's way easier for me to adjust the other two factors. So if my stitches are too long, either I move my speed slider up, which on a Q series is on the screen, but on a domestic, it's a physical slider, right? Or I push my foot pedal more. Okay. If my stitches are too short, I do the opposite. I either come off the foot pedal or I move my speed down. And I find my speed for the day and I listen to the machine. I want to kind of at a constant hum and try to move the fabric the same speed in all directions. Now, if I don't have a regulator, the stitch length that's on the screen does not matter because the feed dogs are down. If I had a regulator on, I'm telling the machine, put a stitch every 2.2 millimeters or 12 stitches per inch, right? Whatever it is. But if I don't have a regulator on, the length usually does not matter. On a Bernina, it certainly doesn't matter. So let me tell you when it does matter. It matters on some brands of machines where the feed dogs go down, they don't actually turn off. So on a Bernina, they don't move, right? Um, on some other brands, when you put them down, they're still moving underneath there, and you get that movement, which gives you more. Uh, it kind of helps you in one direction. It gives you more vibration. It kind of is going to want to move, and you wouldn't want the feed dogs up because it would help you in one direction and hinder you in the other direction. If the feed dogs were down, but they didn't turn off, as happens on some non-Bernina brands, you just wouldn't want that extra vibration down there. So you'd want to bring the stitch length. If your feed dogs literally won't stop when you bring them down, you want to bring the stitch length down to the smallest stitch you can. So at least it's vibrating like this instead of like this, right? Okay. So, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a manual today. Then I'm going to go to stitch regulation, show you how to do it or not do it, right? And then I need to talk to you about BSR1 because there's something you can do to kind of, in BSR1 that kind of makes it feel more manual, okay? Your machine, I meet so many people who own a Q series sit down. So on a frame, I have to be honest, um, I am always on a frame in stitch regulation mode because you literally can't feel the regulators at all on a Q series on a frame. You can't. So I usually am in a regulated mode on a frame. Um, a lot of times for free motion, because I learned without a regulator and because manual is so exceptionally smooth on the Q series, I will free motion in manual. I do like it. If there's a motif I haven't done before, I'd probably go to a stitch regulator, right? So, Joanne's so surprised to see me. Yeah, Joanne knows how much I'm working on right now. Well, Joanne, as you know, I'm going to the doctor's in like half an hour, so I figured I'd do this. But Joanne knows I don't have any fabric cut. Ron D is asking, am I going to be at Road to California later this month? No, normally I don't do quilt shows with the exception of Festival, which I do for Bernina and H&H. So let's see. Okay, so back to regulation. So I'm going to start on manual mode, okay? And I'm going to regulate for you. And then we're going to take those principles and apply it to the regulator. It is true that what I was going to say to you guys about the Q series, you should not be afraid of that manual mode. Nothing. No sit down. As I said, I don't use the manual mode on the frame that much. But no sit down. Stitches like a Q can in manual mode. None. There's just no comparison. And so one of the things that I do when I am at a show like festival, if I see someone come up to the booth and they are very proficient sit down quilter, and I can tell that by the way they're moving, they already have the even movement, is I'll put them in manual because it will sell the machine just by itself for how smooth it is. Okay. It is incredibly smooth. So I had 3 people write to me this week and they're like, oh my goodness, manual, like I put it into manual. It's so incredibly smooth. Is my regulator broken? No, your regulator's not broken. What's happening is when the regulator's on, you're feeling the machine speed up and slow down in response to you. But in manual, it doesn't do that. So you're feeling that ramping up. That's what's supposed to happen. And so you need to start moving consistently so that speeding up and slowing down isn't so accentuated and you sort of forget it's there. But there is no comparison out there to how smooth a Q series is in manual mode. It is incredible. I never use it for rulers, but it is absolutely incredible for free motion. So you shouldn't be afraid of it. And there's nothing wrong with your machine that it's just going into consistent hum when you're in manual. And then in BSR, it's speeding up and slowing down. It's doing what it's supposed to do because it's letting you speed up and slow down instead of having to go consistently. Okay. Do I have a recommendation for when to have a Q-Series service if there are no obvious issues? It can go for years, Karen, but I would ask your dealer. What they say. I would always defer to a tech, but it's not like a domestic machine. If there's no incidents, it can really go a long time. And by incidents, you guys know what I mean. I mean crashing on a ruler. Okay? If you don't do that, you're probably pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to start in here. Did I? I was feeling there's not enough tension on this. I just want to. Sometimes when I take the cover off, yeah, sometimes when I take the cover off, I knock the thread off without realizing it. So you guys are going to ignore my unmanicured hands. That's another thing I need to do. So, what time is it here? That last comment was at 12:07. Okay, I'm good. I have to go to my doctor's appointment. Okay, so let me get this going. Camera. Okay, so needle down, needle up, presser foot up to bring the bobbin thread to the top. I think I knocked out my foot pedal. Why is it not doing that? There we go. Okay. Okay. So now that's my bobbin thread. And I wouldn't recommend doing a live stream without testing everything and making sure it's working. So we're just going to hope it's working. And if I have to, I'll address it. So I'm in manual mode right now. And I'm going to begin with my hands moving really slowly. And I'm not going to do anything fancy. We'll just do some loops. So those little stitches, I wouldn't want to have to take out. And then I try to find my speed for the day. So hopefully you guys can hear this machine running. So what I want to do is find that speed and try to move my hands at a consistent pace. So this is what it would look like if my stitches were too long. Okay, if I'm going to move my hands that fast, I really have to push down on my foot pedal in order to move my hands that fast. If my stitches are way too short, so this is example stitch, and I'm going to move that slow, I got to come up on the foot pedal. So my speed here, I'm really regulating by how much I push that foot pedal, okay? Because I'm in manual mode. Now, if I drove it like a crazy person, like my stitches will reflect that and they'll look really, really bad, okay? You gotta find a consistent speed. So even if I change my shape, I'm going at that consistent speed. Okay? Now let's talk stitch regulation. So I'm going to put it into BSR2 for right now. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to make the machine be jerky by speeding up and slowing down an extreme amount. So I'm going slow, and then I'm going fast. And then I'm going slow, and then I'm going fast. And what you're hearing from the motor, right? I'm not pushing the foot pedal more or less. It's moving faster or slower in response to how fast I'm moving the fabric. So ideally with the stitch regulator, it's going to sound smoother and be easier to stitch with if you kind of stay at that same speed. Because if you don't, you will hear the machine doing what it needs to keep up with you, right? Now you can outrun it and you can get inconsistent stitches. The other thing that I told you guys, sometimes you'll get, watch, when I want to do it, I won't be able to do it. I have to think about it. Okay. I got some jump stitches in there, and that was because I was coming off the foot pedal. You got to keep the foot pedal down so the regulator stays on. If you keep coming off and on, you'll get those inconsistent stitches. Okay? So, when you're using a regulator, you can't be distracted by the machine slowing up and speeding down. I'm slowing up, speeding up and slowing down. That's what you get with a headache. Okay, I'm going to answer questions now. Oh, no. I'm going to show you one more thing. So, in BSR1, so I was in BSR2. In BSR1, it does continuous stitches. So I'm in BSR1, and when I stop, but my foot's still on the foot pedal, it does those continuous stitches. That's what's called the idle speed. Okay, and that's controlled by this second slider. This is the idle speed. Okay, it will feel more manual to you if you pump up the idle speed. It also can feel for beginners sometimes like a runaway train. So what I just did by pumping up the idle speed, when I stop, do you see how much faster that needle's running? Okay, it will feel more manual like that. But the trade off is if you're a person who waits and waits and waits before you decide you're going to move, you're going to get a knot on the back. It's not good, right? You kind of have to move when you pump up the idle speed in BSR1. But there are a lot of people who like BSR1 with the idle speed pumped up because it feels more manual because it's kind of like a combination of stitch regulation and manual. Okay. What mode? If you guys have questions, put them in the comments. Let's see. I am using the new Perfect Quilting thread in the top and bottom of this. I have OESD. This one's color 3000. It's the cream. Yes, I'm using it top and bottom. What do I recommend on Q16 sit down to do straight line quilting? I would use BSR2 because it's ruler work, so it's way faster with BSR2. And you don't want those continuous stitches every time you change the direction of the ruler, right? So if I was doing a straight line, it's going to be way faster in BSR2. I do all my ruler work in BSR2, whether I'm on a sit down or a frame. All of it. The only time I don't is when I'm demoing for you guys who are on domestics who might not have regulation with rulers. Okay. Let's see. I'm going back. I don't know, Joanne, I don't know if you're seeing questions that I don't see. I may have covered it all. I don't see anything else. Why am I using the foot pedal? Because uh, why am I using the foot pedal? Uh, if I'm in manual mode, do you remember how I said if the foot pedal actually does more than turn on and off in manual mode. It regulates my speed. So if I demoed like I did in manual mode, I'm going to use that foot pedal because that actually is speeding up or slowing down the machine easier than me clicking the screen. Okay. Um, it's easier for me to do that because my hands are on the quilt. So I don't want to, although I do adjust the speed slider, like if I see my stitches are all long, I'll bring the speed slider up. You have to stop to do that. And doing it with the foot pedal allows you to do it as you're quilting, right? So personally, I never use manual mode without a foot pedal because I don't have the ability to speed up and slow down. Okay. Um, in BSR2, I could do it without the foot pedal for free motion. I don't like to do it for ruler work because you stop and start so much for ruler work, or you should stop and start so much. There's people who walk the ruler and their stuff looks a mess because they're walking while they're running the machine, they're changing their hands, etc. That doesn't work. So you have to stop every time you move the ruler. And so I I don't use I always have a foot pedal for ruler work. The only time I wouldn't have a foot pedal is if I was using BSR2 for a free motion fill somewhere. And then oftentimes I'm not doing that because um I'm using the hydraulic table and I'm standing up, so I don't want to use the foot pedal. But for all manual stitching and certainly for ruler work, I would use the foot pedal. And you guys remember, like I learned on a domestic originally. Let's see. When I'm using straight stitch in BSR, my, oh, sorry. Oh, that's my fabric company. I have to get that later. When I'm using straight stitch, um, I'm going back to Shireen, what she's asking. Why am I using the foot pedal when I'm using stitching in BSR2? I would absolutely use the foot pedal. I think I'm not getting that across, so let me show you. Um, and then, did you feel? Oh yeah, and Joanne makes the point on the Q series, you can use the foot pedal to bring up the thread. And I will answer the question about the 990 in a minute. Let me just run and show you guys straight stitching, and I'll show you why I'm using the foot pedal. I do not. I always have gloves on if I'm doing ruler work. Hold on 1 minute. Let's hope this doesn't. I need a straight ruler of some sort. Um, okay, I have a Jubilee ruler. Um, I normally have on a glove on both hands, and I don't have two gloves down here, so I'm just doing this with one glove. I'm going to just do some straight line ruler work, and I want you to see how many times I stop. If you don't use the foot pedal, every time you stop, right, you push the heel every single time you stop. It's just like too much pushing the heel. It's just uncomfortable to me. So let's just, um, I'm going to be in BSR2. I'm going to turn this on and you're going to see how many times I stop. Okay, so I'm stitching down. I stop and I reposition my hands. Okay. What I don't want to do is keep the machine running as I reposition because it's really easy to move things because the needle's running. So when you reposition your ruler, things are going to move because at some points the is up. You have to stop every single time. Every single time you reposition that ruler, you stop, and it's way easier to do that with the foot pedal. And that's why I always use the foot pedal for ruler work. Because if you don't, you're tempted to move the ruler as you're sewing, and it never, ever is going to look good. Okay? You gotta stop doing that. You gotta stop. You gotta stop every single time you reposition the ruler. It's way easier to do that with the foot pedal. Okay. Uh, yes. So, M Maker. She said, she once tried at a domestic sewing machine quilter. She's saying she did hear the motor. This is a person who learned to quilt on a domestic. She came over here, she used the regulator, and it actually threw her a little because she was so used to regulating. Yeah, that can happen if you're very used to an unregulated machine. You kind of have to ignore it and just trust that regulator. The benefit of the regulator is it will make your stitches more perfect than you can make them. But it does have that motor going up and down a little bit, and you got to get really used to that to like it. I like it for some applications. Some applications I do manually. Okay, let me see. The 990 question. Um, I do not feel that it performs exactly the same as the sit down. I still think the Q series outperforms everything in the quilting arena, but this is a machine that was designed to do one thing exceptionally well. The 990 does 6 million other things. Now, here's the thing. I do feel the regulator on the 990 is far superior than the regulator foot. I feel like Bernina has made significant improvements. I feel like it works really well, especially for a domestic machine that does all these other things. But I don't feel it's quite the equivalent of a Q series. Again, a Q series has two sensors down here. So, it just is, and this is all it does. It doesn't do feed dogs, etc. So, no, I don't feel they're equivalent, but I feel like the 990 was a vast improvement. It's close, but I still feel the Q series is like if I had to choose whether to do if I could only have one machine, of course I'd have a 990 because I can't piece on a Q series, right? I can't sew on a Q series. I can't embroider on a Q series. So I'd have to choose the 990. But if I was choosing a machine for quilting hands down, I'd still choose a Q series. Although the 990, as I said, the stitch regulator is a vast improvement over the stitch regulator foot. Okay? That's my own feeling about it. Let's see. Do I use would I demonstrate on the 990? Right now, I can't bring any cameras upstairs. There's just too many things that I'm not allowed to talk about upstairs. I actually have the 990 set up for embroidery right now. Let's see. If I'm not using the BSR with rulers, is it just practice to keep your stitches even? That's a good question, Joel. Yes, it's practice, but it's also fine. It's really listening to this machine. So I'm just going to run it so you guys can hear it. I think you guys can hear whoops, I'm in stitch right now. Okay. You got to get used to, instead of looking at each stitch, you got to get used to going at a speed. Your machine should sound like this. Okay. Linda, do I use the foot pedal with the Q20 on the frame? No, but as I said, on a frame, you never feel the stitch regulators. You just don't, because you're just moving the handles. It's so light. You don't really need to be in manual. And I will tell you, there are people who do stitch manually on a frame. Usually that's someone who learned manually on a frame. And so that's how they stitch. But I almost always use the regulators on the frame. It just looks better to me. There's certain patterns, maybe pebbles or something, where I like manual, but almost always I would say I have a regulator on a frame. And no, I don't use the foot pedal because you wouldn't have a foot pedal on a frame. Will I be demoing the 990 in the future? I don't want to make any promises for what I am going to do or not doing on live streams. I don't want to, I don't, you guys, these are free, right? You got to take them for what they are. I don't want to make any more promises right now because I sort of do what I can get done within any free time that I have. So we'll just see. Can you computerize a Q20? A Q20 on a frame? Yes, because then the frame is attached to the computer's attached to tracks, which moves the sew head, right? And that's an advantage of frame quilting. It could be completely computerized, but as a sit down, no, it cannot. Um, if I did not have a frame, what I would do as a solution for this is I would do all my ruler work here. Then I would take it to my 990, do any computerized quilting I wanted to do, and then I'd come back and do any fills here. Yes, the 990 can do it all, but as I said before, I still feel the Q is the best quilting machine out there. It's just, as far as it goes, just for the free motion and ruler work component. But yes, you can definitely computerize something on a frame. And what's nice about the Berninas is you can start in a sit down and later move to a frame and later add automation. So you can do it in stages, or if you're downsizing the other way, you can take something, a Q20, not a Q24, because that's frame only, but a Q20 could go table or frame. Is Perfect Quilting Thread your top choice now? Absolutely, because it's stronger than a regular cotton, but it's not stretchy like a traditional polyester. It's very, very stable, and it's thin relatively, which I like. I don't like the really thick cottons. I think it just shows any inconsistencies more. I like the thinner ones. This is a cotton wrap poly, and it is my favorite. I should get more for my shop. I think I still have some pastel swools up there, but I need to get more of this. You reminded me. I'll do that on my to-do list. Order thread from Jordan. And you can find this in participating quilt shops. Hold on. I have to add this to my calendar, or I won't remember to do it. Order thread. Do you know what I have to do? I have to go to my warehouse today and try to find my OESD pressing mat. I have no idea where it is. And if not, I have to order a new one, which will be like my 14th OESD presser mat. Okay. Can you use it for piecing? Yes, I have been using Perfect Quilting Thread for piecing. It's very good for piecing because it's strong, but it's not like it's still like that cotton finish. Yes, I've been using it for piecing. I've been trading over to, I've used it for pretty much everything other than I have an embroidery right now where I wanted it to be shiny. And I didn't use it for that, but I've been using it for everything else. Yes. And I buy it in cones. I always have, you guys know, I buy cones in pairs, and then I wind bobbins from one, and then I stitch from the other so I don't have to clip my threads. And that's how I buy, at least for, I wouldn't say for every shade, but for the main shades you use the most. I will order more cones, so I have it on my website. Okay. And I think that's it for today. Okay. Thank you guys for tuning in. Next time, hopefully, I will have more fabric, etc. All that will be done. Joanne, I will talk to you later today, probably. And I am going to go off to my warehouse and the doctor's appointment. So I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Have a